What's up, Sandals U? So glad that you're here with us. And man, all of our campuses together coming to listen and to be challenged by God's word. And especially I want to welcome Sandals Youth Menifee, because you guys are launching tonight. And I'm so glad that you're here with us. You guys are a part of a bigger family. Know that now it's 10 campuses all across the Southern California. And so we're so pumped that you're here with us. Christian, you're a good dude, and you should treat him really nicely. Unless he doesn't deserve it, then you should totally treat him bad. Just kidding, don't do that, okay? But so glad that you're here with us. We're just gonna dive right on in as we're talking about family drama, family dynamics. And here's the cool thing is that our Bible, it doesn't shy away from things. It doesn't shy away from the nastiness of certain things. And there's a lot of family drama that happens within Scripture. And there's some messed up families in there. It actually makes me feel really good about my family sometimes, because some of the stories that I read, especially the one that we're gonna read today, I look at that and I go, thank God, that's not my family right there. Like, can you imagine if this was your family? And it just made me feel really good about how messed up, my family's not as messed up as the ones that we're going to read today. And so the story that we're reading today it's actually the story of Joseph and his family, because there's a lot of weird dynamics that goes into there. And so let me give you just a little bit of history before we talk about this one particular section of Joseph's story. So Joseph, it's in the book of Genesis. And to give some context, he was the favorite child of his father. He was the youngest of like 11 brothers, and he was the favorite of his father. Now, if you think about it, you might already think in your family that you are the favorite. Maybe you feel that, or maybe you feel like a sibling is a favorite of your parents, and you could already kind of feel like how weird that already is. That's a weird dynamic to walk into if you really do believe that about your family. But Joseph was the favorite amongst his siblings. And not only that, Joseph, what he would do, he would share some of the dreams that God would give him, and he would share them with his older brothers. And these dreams were not like, just kind of random weird dreams that we sometimes have, but it was like hey, you, my older brothers, are going to bow to me, and I'm going to rule over you. Now, if you have a younger sister or brother, and if they were to come, like I do, I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and if they were to come to me and tell me that thing, I'd be like, boom, right? I get them out of my, yeah, right, there's no way I'm gonna have you rule over me. There's no way that that's gonna happen. But that's exactly what Joseph was saying. And so not only that, because they were so upset with Joseph that they actually sold him into slavery. So wow, I don't know about you. There's definitely some times where I was little where I thought about selling my brother. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've had those thoughts, but I've never actually pulled the trigger on actually making that a reality. But this is what Joseph's brothers did. They pretended and got his robe, and they covered it with blood. They brought it back to his parents, and they said, hey, your son has been killed by wild animals. And they actually sold him into slavery, hoping to never, ever see him again, to get rid of him because of all the dreams that he was sharing with them about him lording over them. Now, fast forward, there's all this stuff that happened with Joseph. He went into slavery, was in this guy named Potiphar's house where he was the head of the household there. He got into a situation there where he left, and then he was put into a prison of the Pharaoh, and he became the number 2 ruler in all of Egypt. So there's Pharaoh, the king, and then it was Joseph. And this is where we kind of pick up, because there's this famine in the land. Joseph's brothers come to him, and here's where we kind of pick up. Because they realized, man, who they were dealing with, and it was Joseph now after all these years. And it's in Genesis 50, verses 15 to 21. And we're going to kind of dive through some of those things. It says, but now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Now let me just stop right there really quick, because I just want to bring up a reality. He says, but now that their father was dead. So here's my question. With all the different family dynamics going on in your household, with all the maybe drama or hurt feelings that we have within siblings, mothers, fathers, why would we go on with the drama or holding back with trying to mend the relationships, knowing at some point, maybe not soon, but at some point, they're not going to be here anymore? At some point, the reality is that they're not going to be here anymore. So why would we withhold trying to take a step forward in mending the relationship if we could do that now? And they could save and have healthier future relationships with our family. Why wouldn't we think? That's when I read that, that's like the first thing that popped in my head. Why do we wait? Why do we hold back on some of those things? So I want to continue. Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong that we did to him. So think about all the things that Joseph's brothers did, sold him into slavery, and all the things that happened because of that they're fearful now. So they sent a message to Joseph. So before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong that they did to you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of God and your father, beg you to forgive our sin. And then when Joseph received this message, he broke down and wept. See, sometimes the path of healing, think about your family. I don't know your family. I don't know your family dynamics. I don't know what's going on the inside, but just think about this, that sometimes the path of healing takes you down a path of crying. Sometimes the path of healing takes you down a path of things that you've been trying to push out and not to enter into because you've suppressed them, or you just choose to avoid them, or you run away from them. But sometimes the path of healing leads you into some of those things. It leads you into the bringing up the pain again, leads you bringing up to these feelings of hurt again, because it's the first step towards healing. See, think when Joseph was sad because he would never get those years back. Think about all the years that he's wasted, that he never had a relationship with his family, his brothers, because of what they have done. That he was never able to get those things back. And yet we still choose to refuse to take a step towards health in our family because we are hurt, or because we are choosing to simply not to, or to hold it over the head, or to hold a grudge against them. That here's the thing is, you're never going to get that time back. You're never going to get it back. See, I have a family, some people in my family who haven't talked to each other in 3 years. Literally, haven't talked to each other in 3 years because of something that was said. They're not going to get that time back. My father-in-law, he has not talked to his brother in 15 years. No form of communication at all for 15 years. And just this last week, his brother called him out of the blue because he realized that they were not going to have the time, like all the time in the world, to begin to mend the relationship. They realized how much time that they let go between of not having a relationship. And he called out of the blue. My father-in-law still has not called him back because he doesn't know what to say. Like, we don't know. You're not going to get that time back. And sometimes when it comes to fixing some relationships, that you have to go back into the pain. You have to go back into those feelings. You have to go back into bringing up some of the stuff, because you have to address it. You have to apologize, and you have to begin the healing process. And the longer you wait, the more you lose. So my question is, why wait? Why wait? That when we look at the story of Joseph, I think that's why he was sad in this moment, is because there was such a long gap. He lost all this time that he never got back. Verse 18, then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. So they came before him, and they threw themselves down before him and says, look, we are your slaves, they said. But Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I could punish you? See, Joseph's brothers come to him for help. Even after all they've done, they realized that they were wrong. They had to come to him, and they had to hope that he would respond really well. And Joseph responds in the way that I feel that God is telling us that we need to respond, is that am I God that I'm here to choose your punishment? See, Joseph had every right. He was second in command in Egypt. He could have had them all killed, and no one would have batted an eye, yet he chose to take the posture of humility and to say, I am not God. I'm not here to punish you. And let's be honest, some of us, we in our families, when it comes to the dynamics, we can't wait. We can't wait for that moment for that person that said that thing that hurt us when they were wrong. We can't wait for that moment where they did something to us that was wrong. And we can't wait for them to come crawling to us and apologize, because then we're like Jafar in the movie Aladdin. We're like, yes, I can't wait for you to I can't wait to tell you all the things that you need to do in order to get back my forgiveness, right? Like that's kind of, so for some of us, like we can't wait. But in reality, that's just more damage. It brings more damage to the relationship. Some of us, we want to milk it, or we want to play the victim because we want to make sure that they know that the thing that they did was so wrong. Yet I think we need to have the same relationship or the same response that Joseph had, was, am I God that I'm to choose your punishment? Can you imagine like how much better our relationships would be if we just did that? If we just did had this response? Verse 20 going on, it says, you intended to harm me. So this is Joseph talking to his brothers. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me into this position so I could save the lives of many people. He says, no, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. How much of the family drama in our lives would go away if we just chose to spoke kindly to them? Like in reality, like out of our response that we would choose to speak kindly to them. See, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible what Joseph did. It's pretty incredible his response to his brothers who hurt him. So the question is then, what do we do? What do we do? And we all have some sort of broken relationships in our family. That's what happens when a whole bunch of people of all different ages live together in the same house. There's going to be broken relationships. So what do we do? And I would like to share just one thing, and your youth lead is going to maybe share a couple of other things, but I think there's one really important thing that we could take a step forward in our healing relationships with our family. And I want to preface it with this, is that everything shared from here on out, whether it's from me or whether it's from your youth leads, it's a work in progress. This is it's not a one and done thing. It's not a perfect thing. I'm still working through the weird family dynamics that I have in my own home. And I'm not perfect, and I'm still navigating it. But I think that if we begin to look to God and even look at Joseph's response in this, and we are to be intentional about it, we could begin the process of healing. So I want us to kind of nail down this one thing, and it's to deal with family drama. I need to do my part to bring healing. I need to do my part to bring healing. Here's something that I've learned as I've navigated plenty of my own family hurt and my own family drama, is that I have a part to bring in the healing process. Sometimes I've messed up, and sometimes I need to apologize. Sometimes I need to take the step forward and taking this first step and bring on my part. And sometimes that's acknowledging that I messed up. That's acknowledging that I said something hurtful. And that's acknowledging that I need to do something in order to reconcile the relationship. But sometimes I was not in the wrong. Sometimes the wrong was done to me. Sometimes the wrong or the hurtful thing was said to me. But there's always a small part where I could begin to work in making the relationship healthy again, that I could take my part. See, some of us, we wonder why God hasn't given us, why God gave us our families, or why God gave us our parents, or why God gave us our brothers. Like, God, why can't you change them? Or why can't you fix them? Why can't you do something? But here's the thing, is that I want us to look at this little story in Luke, chapter 12, verses 13 and 14, that this is what he says, and I think it's super interesting. Look what it says. It says, then someone called out from the crowd. So Jesus teaching, someone just randomly calls out, probably in middle school or somewhere. See, the teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me. And then Jesus replied, friend, who made me judge over you to decide such things as that? See, what is Jesus saying? Jesus is saying that I don't decide on how you choose to respond to your family. He says, who am I to decide, to tell you how you respond? I don't choose, make you say the things that you say. I don't choose the things how you respond to your family. See, listen, Jesus is the king. He sits on the throne of heaven, but he does not make you speak how you speak to your family. Jesus is the king. He lords over our lives, but he doesn't choose how well or bad you respond to your mom or dad when they ask you to do something. That he can't decide that if you're going to be mean, sarcastic, vengeful, hurtful, or backstabbing, or if you're going to respond in gracious kindness, helpfulness, and being able to listen and forgive them. How you choose to respond is totally up to you. See, a lot of the times when we think lots of times we look for God to change them, but what God is saying, no, let me change you first. Let me work in you first, because then when I work in you, it will determine how you respond to them. And so, God is forgiving, but he can't make you forgive your dad. He can't. God is loving, but he can't make you act lovingly towards your siblings. See, God is gracious, but he doesn't mean that he can make you act gracious towards your mom. See, only you could do that. And I think that we need to do our part in healing. And I think our part in healing is realizing that God wants to do something in you first before we could respond to others. See, students, a lot of you, if you were to do your part, you would start to see some really healthy relationships start to form in your family. Maybe you could even be the example in your family of what it means to respond in a Jesus-like way if you feel that they are not doing those things. So that's my challenge to you is we need to take up our part of things. So your youth lead's now going to come up, and they're going to walk you through the rest of our service and maybe add a couple of things to what we got going on. So we'll see you next week.